Welcome, Marcia J. Good morning. Welcome, Trish. Welcome, Kim. Nice to see you. I'm so proud of you all. So committed to your own growth and brand and advancement. That's fantastic. So today we're talking about motivators and its consequences, or building your network. Uh, I sent out the notes. I hope that you were able to go through it to make sure we're all updated on where we are. And so that as we go into this lesson, you would have been updated from with where we're coming from, because it's good to have the prelude before getting here. This is where your life really, your purpose, your values, your early emotional experiences really um, come together and hopefully harmonize, and it's from here that you start having those fireworks moments in your life. Once you get to understand what motivates you, why it motivates you, how to relate to it as you move forward in your life, and it's beautiful. Now, motivators are different from values, because values are elements that um, we learn that are influenced by external forces. For example, um, your school, your church, your parents. It's external. Your values are influenced by external things and external people. Your motivators, however, are completely you. It comes from you, and it's through your motivator that God really sows your purpose. And that is sown through your early emotional experiences. And so, what you'll find is the reason someone at 80 years old who worked for Uncle Sam all his life, at 80 years old, will still be saying, okay, there's something I've got to do that I have to do before I die. That's what motivators are. That one thing that's inside of you that you cannot suppress, you can't ignore, you just have to do it. And the reason that is the case is because it is laced in pain. So we never stray from it. We never forget it, right? Your motivators is connected to your early emotional trauma. Remember in the first session when we talk about your number two, your early emotional trauma, whatever motivates you is directly embedded there, right? So it doesn't matter what you do, if whatever you do is not creating healing for you there, you're not going to be happy. You're always going to be seeking something else. And until you get to understand purpose, values, and the motivators behind that, you will continue to be just lost, unhappy, and just not quite sure, why am I not getting there? Why am I not connecting? Why am I doing this job that I don't really like? Why am I? Because our values are very strong, and our values are taught and reinforced. And so, what happens sometimes unintentionally, these social structures, because they're sharing the values, it kind of sometimes suppress the real person inside. Not because it's intentional, but because each person is coming based on who they are. So, everyone who's speaking to your life is speaking based on who they are, not based on who you are. The only thing that defines you are the words that come after I am. So motives are natural drives, the things that comes naturally to you. That's just the thing that you enjoy, like that gives you the most enjoyment, the most healing when you're doing it naturally, right? It's also unconscious, right? So you see the subconscious, that's where your motivators lie, which is why sometimes what you say, what you do, and what you feel may not be in complete congruence, because your consciousness is saying, this is what I'm supposed to do. But the unconscious is saying something completely different. And sometimes, most times, until we have the quantum shifts that we need, we tell that motivator inside, that little girl, little boy, sit in that corner over there, because we're not going to pay attention to that, because the values are the values are conscious. The values are embedded in our consciousness. Our motivators are in our unconsciousness, right? Motivators also predict types of behaviors a person will gravitate toward over time. So this is what I say: whatever motivates you controls you, whether you know it or not, whether you're in the consciousness of it or not. Also, motivators are basic, very basic. They're influenced by early emotional experiences. Your childhood, between conception to 6 years old, are so critical for multiple reasons, because that's really where your gifts, that's where you get your gift. That's when you get your gifts. That's when you get tagged with, this is what your purpose is. But then as we grow older, we go through all these conditioning, not negative, all this preparation for something, but it's all based, because we're not in charge of ourselves, it's all based on someone else's purpose and someone else's desires and someone else's um, uh, purpose and calling. So as you grow older, the plan or the hope is that you find yourself, right? The final thing is, with motives, they're more difficult to change. And this is why when you go to court, if something happens and you go to court, what they talk about is not even your intention, is the motive behind it. Because we know that motives are embedded. Motives are unconscious. Motives are natural drives. So we know that it's connected to something much deeper. While values choose areas of importance. Values are more conscious. Values help you make decisions. Isn't that interesting? Values help you make decisions, but motives are where your natural drives is and your natural influences are there. So you see where your values and your motivators sometimes can really clash, especially for persons who may have grown up in environments that were just not harmonious to who you are intrinsically. So those things are important to note. And I'm going to share with you, because we're talking about building networks. Before you even start thinking about building networks, you need to learn what motivates you, because whatever is motivating you is what is influencing your choices with regards to relationships. You go to spaces where that feeds your subconscious, not your conscious, right? So it's not difficult to look at someone who, for example, is a Christian, but they're hanging with people, or a man or woman who's dating someone who isn't a Christian, and you're wondering why. Motivators, they're unconscious. So even that person may be wondering, why am I doing this? Because it's the healing that the motivator looks for, the healing from that early emotional trauma. Were we all able to read the notes so far? Just type yes or no. And there are no wrong answers. Were we? Anybody? Okay. So, okay. Oh, great. Okay, no problem. Thank you for responding. So you will never achieve a result that is greater than the quality or quantity of your relationships, right? And okay, awesome, awesome. And later on, I'm going to take you through a formula to help you um, identify how you're investing as it relates to relationships. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the commitment-based leadership. Okay, great. Okay, thank you all for responding. Commitment-based leadership is really about there are different types of leadership. You have autocratic, laissez-faire, and all the traditional one, transformational, different types of leadership styles. The one that brings about the greatest success, especially for entrepreneurs, business owners, is the commitment-based leadership model. And in the commitment-based leadership model, this is where leadership is defined as bringing something into existence that never existed before. So if you ever wonder why is entrepreneurship so quote unquote hard or seemingly difficult, because it's not more difficult than any other business, because it's the same level of commitment, right? You still have to get up and go to work. You still have to get stuff done. But the reason it may seem a bit more challenging or more demanding is that the entrepreneur is always in a leadership role because you're constantly bringing into existence something that never existed before. Leaders that achieve breakthrough results do so because they are proficient at identifying and declaring breakdowns. I said it, breakdowns. Now, breakdowns is what people would call failures, right? And everybody is trying to move away from failure. Ain't nobody trying to have that happen. I call it the fright flight, right? So the way we view failure, I think we have an unhealthy relationship with failure. So I always say fail forward, or let's change the whole word altogether. Let's not say failure anymore. Let's say we're having a breakdown. Because the truth is, you cannot have a breakthrough without a breakdown. You cannot have success without failure. And I learned that success will never get you on the kind of platforms failure will or can, especially when you have a huge failure. And I did, I have. But when you have huge failure, failure has a tendency to really catapult you to destinations that success will never bring because no one will be jealous of you when you're failing. It drives you. Yes, of course it should, right? No one will champion your success the way people will emphasize your failure. So your failure is a gift. It really is. It is the gift and the space, and it gives you the opportunity to 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 champion your cause. But you just have to know how to get up and how to use it. And I use the word leverage a lot. You just have to know how to leverage it, right? So breakdowns are amazing. They're good. Embrace it. Yes? This allows them to examine both what exists and is working and what needs to be created in order to achieve the results to which they are committed. When failure or breakdown happens, the the first thing you get to identify is something is missing. So what happens sometimes is we get lost in the context of the failure or the breakdown, right? Um, and then we lose sometimes the opportunity that comes about in the moment. So if what if you were to, when something bad happens, to stop and say, what's missing here? What am I discovering that's missing? And also, on the other hand, what is showing up, right? Because there's something missing, but something's also showing up. So, for example, the tools may be missing, but their competence is showing up. For example, let's say something terrible happens to you, right? I can share with you what happened to me. My company was stolen, right? It hits its first 2 million and then it was stolen from me. And in the moment, it was surprising for me that I never even I wasn't alarmed. I just went straight into meditation. Like, okay, who am I being that this is showing up? What's missing right here? What am I doing that is resulting in this kind of um, negative, in my mind, outcome? Because that's not what I was hoping for. Of course, I later learned that that was a gift for me, an absolute gift. But the time I took to just kind of check what is happening here, what's missing, I realized purpose was, I was missing. So yeah, I had a company that was flourishing, was doing so well. Everybody was just like, oh my God, this is like such a great idea. Like, how did you come up with this idea? And I was just there like, huh? I was completely missing. I didn't know who I was, what my purpose was. And that's why I say, like I said in the last class, anyone can make money. It's not difficult to make money, but to create wealth, right? To build something that people will carry forward with them, that means something to someone else. You've got to learn who you are. You've got to discover what your motivators are. Why am I doing this, right? So let's look at what commitment is. Our commitment is the stand we take for a different future. It exists in language and has an impact on results. The greater our commitment, the greater the results we can achieve. And I must tell you this, just you being here this morning is such a huge commitment that you're making, that and it will bring about outcomes you never thought about just by waking up 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning and showing up, showing up. And it is not possible to achieve breakthrough results without committed action. As a leader, we want to be able to create and maintain commitment, both in ourselves and others. When faced with a breakdown, there are 3 responses possible. So you don't have to freak out like me. I have a way of freaking out first and then getting it together after. So, 1, you can keep the commitment, or 2, you can change the commitment, or 3, you can decommit. See, there's always a way around it, out of it, above it, below it. Yes. So let's look at what are breakdowns now, right? Breakdowns are problems, barriers that occurs that can put our commitment to a breakthrough result at risk. They can be declared by anyone at any time. It is through the occurrence of breakdowns that we become aware of the relationships, possibilities, opportunities, tools, competencies, structures, and actions at our disposal that were present in the background, as well as what is missing that needs to be built or created. Breakdowns are your gift. Breakdowns, I believe, was cultivated by God to help us to kind of it's like an intermittence in between our achievements. Because just imagine, for example, one of the examples, the biblical reference for this session was Rehoboam. Here was Rehoboam. He inherited this kingdom, right? And he didn't really have the skill set to really manage a kingdom yet. And so here he was seeking advice, but he wasn't even sure which one to follow. And then he followed one that just resulted in him losing a massive portion of his inheritance and left him with only one kingdom to rule, right? Using my own experiences, I feel like I was heading down the wrong road. I mean, people were just constantly saying to me, "Oh my gosh, you're so smart." Even my executive directors, and I'm just, with all the attitude in the world, like, "Yeah, right, just do your job." you know, I used to have people say to me, "Can you make it a little smaller? Don't make it so big." And I was just feeding into that because I didn't know who I was. And thank God for breakdowns, because what happens is, breakdowns is where God says, "Okay, I have this big thing for you, this massive success for you, but I have to protect you from yourself. And I have to help you come into the awareness of how you're being. Because if I just give this to you, you may just lose it all." So he sends these little intermittent breakdowns to help you come into awareness of how you're showing up, who you're being, so you can learn from it to be better able to grasp the success coming, right? And again, happened to me, and thank God it did, right? Your relationships form the foundation of leadership and achieving results. We will never achieve a result that is greater than the quality or quantity of our relationships. Future conversations can only take place in the context of relatedness and shared commitment. Who is in your network? Who has your ear? And whose ear do you have? Right? I don't know if you've ever watched the show Downton Abbey. I love the show for this reason. It gave me a really good insight into what power may have looked like or what it looks like. And when I sit and I watched and I look at how, for example, the maids who are the servants, the lead maid, like the one for the queen of that county, and how that maid is able to influence the queen's decisions, right? The way the real power wasn't with the king or queen. It really lied with the servants, right? Because they had their ear. And so they were able to manipulate, manage, course, They were really able to run. It's like they say in a marriage, the man is the head, but the woman is the neck, because the neck turns the head. It would be the similar thing. And as I watched it, it intrigued me because I'm like, look at that. Who who is influencing your decisions? Who's that person? Who are those persons? Who are the top 5 people closest to you? Do you know you're the average of the 5 closest people to you? And I'm going to give you the breakdown of that. So let's look at possibilities, right? When you have relationships, relationships forms the foundation of all results, right? Relationships create possibilities. Without relationships, you're unlimited to your own ideas and thoughts and experiences, right? But relationships exposes you to possibilities, right? Possibilities are conversations that describe a future state that is different from the past or present. They provide a context in which we can take action in order to achieve the results which we are committed, right? So possibilities really opens the door for just about any great thing to happen. And possibilities bring about opportunities. Opportunities are where possibilities are tested against key criteria to determine their feasibility. They require an analysis against conditions of satisfaction, clear, measurable, observable criteria that will tell us what we have achieved, that will tell us that we have achieved our breakthrough results. It is important to remember that the criteria against which the feasibility of possibilities are grounded are not those of the past or present, but rather those of the built reality of the future. And one of the things that there's this thing called circumstantial drift. And if you read the notes or if you got a chance to see them, you'd have seen, I shared with you a diagram of the past, the present, and the future. A lot of us are existing in the past. A lot of us, everything we're doing, we're working really hard. And we're asking ourselves, why haven't I touched that success yet? A lot of us are doing new things or seemingly new things, but they're all derivative of past information, past experiences, past knowledge, things that happened in the past. Again, remember, who's a leader? A leader is someone who brings something into existence that never existed before. Never existed before, right? So if you are not constantly innovating, creating things, having conversations about the future, about things that haven't yet happened or you don't even know what's going to happen, not knowing or feeling like you're in a forest trying to figure things out and you just don't know where you are is not necessarily a bad thing sometimes. It's good to do things that get you into spaces where you wonder, oh my gosh, what's happening next? Mystery isn't a bad thing. It's actually a really, really good thing. It means that you're coming through a journey and you're getting to a place that you've never been. Maximize on that. Do that a lot more, right? Ask more questions than providing more answers. Yes, because the more questions you ask that you don't have the answer to, is the better you position yourself, to discover new things. A leader is a motivator as well, absolutely, or should be. Yes, so you're very correct, Q. Very correct. A leader is a motivator. Thank you for that. Actions are the speech acts, for example, promises, requests, offers, declarations, assertions, and assessments that we make continue to move us in a future direction. When you make commitments, which is why your word, it's so important for you to keep your word. And the results are the breakthroughs that we seek to achieve that are grounded in a commitment to a future that is different from the past. It's very important for us to understand the whole where we are as it relates to our relationships and what possibilities those bring about, because all your relationships are bringing about a possibility. Now you are the only one who can determine if those possibilities are within your favor or not, because some of us are busy making decisions about our network, pertinent decisions about our network that we are not really clear about, that we're not really sure or intentional about, and the result is what we're seeing. The result is absolutely what we're seeing. So we have to come into the consciousness of who's in my network, why are they here, how are they impacting my choices, how are they impacting, is it my motivators that's, for example, let's say I'm in your life now, because I'm speaking into your life right now. How did I get here? Was it as a result of your motive, or what is motivating you, or was it as a result of your values? It is important for you to know why, so you can know where to place me, right? Just as an example, so you can know, where does this fit in my network, my plan, my strategy? How will this influence my outcome, right? So those are important things to note and to understand, so that when you have people in your life, you know exactly how to place them, where to place them, and where they would be most effective in your life. We're going to go through. I'm going to share with you a formula, and I'd like you to get your pen and paper as we go through this. And it's called your true brand value. So we're going to calculate your true brand value. And this is a theory I'd like to share with you, a formula I'd like to share with you. You can choose to use it or not. Remember, from the beginning of this session, everything here is optional, right? Everything here is optional. So we're going to calculate what we call your true brand value, or for persons who will be hiring people, your true employment brand value. Right? So let me know when you're ready. Do you have any questions for me so far based on what I've said so far? Any questions, any clarification needed? Are we all on the same track? Just type in the message. Feel free to call in if you wish and let me know. Okay? So, your true brand value. We're going to calculate that now. What is your true brand value? Your true brand value represents what's the sum of your brand. I'm a success coach, yes. And so that may say to you, I have some certifications and things like that. But do you know who I know? Do you know who I'm connected to? Do you know whose ear I've got? Do you know who I influence? Do you know who influences me? When we apply for jobs, or we go to the bank and we apply for a loan, they say to you, get some references. Ever wonder why? Do you think it's because they want someone to say, oh, she's nice or he's nice? No. It's really because they're doing an assessment on your brand value. Yeah. They want to know, how much is this person really worth? Does this person have the relevant connections that can bring our business the kind of positive attention or the positive outcome that we want? Will this person bring value to our organization if we add them to our network? Because your network, it is said, is your net worth, and that is very true, right? The extent of your possibilities is based on the extent of your relationships, right? I always say, I don't do anything unless there's a reward or some kind of orgasmic outcome. And I'm not just talking sex, but that too. You know, when I do this or when I do something, what's the reward? What do I get out of it? And that's not a bad thing to ask yourself. When you're connected with people, when you're doing things, you must ask yourself, what's the orgasmic outcome that I'm going to get from this? What is the healing? What is the, oh God, yes, that I'm going to get from it? What reward is coming from it? If you cannot identify a reward, then you should really stop and think before you do that thing, right? So, because it's going to affect your true brand value, your brand value. What am I worth, right? So your true brand value equals personal investment plus network investment. True brand value, or TBV, equals personal investment, or PI, plus your network investment, your net investment, NI. So this is what I would like you to write down. TBV equals PI plus NI. And TBV is true brand value, PI is personal investment, and NI is net investment. So follow me closely. Follow me closely. Now, I'm an English student, and I'm going to be giving you formula. This is how I know that I'm in purpose, because there's no way I could have come up with any formula on my own. And thank you for Minister Carl for us working together to really get these things down. So I'll repeat: T as in toy or true, B as in brand or boy, V as in value or victory. TVB equals PI plus NI, and PI is personal investment and NI is net investment. I just shared it with you. And I really want you to follow closely with me as we go through this. Yes. So your true brand value is the sum of the top 5 people in your life, or the sum of the top 5 employees in your company, which would be equal to your employment brand value. Yes, calculations begin. So number 1, we're going to calculate the PI. What is the personal investment that you're making? So that's PI, personal investment. Now, to calculate your personal investment, it is the sum of the number of hours you spend with each individual in the top 5 closest persons to you. So, for example, I'm going to calculate Alicia's personal investment when her hourly rate is $75, and her hourly rate is what she determines is her professional, personal hourly rate. So if, for example, you don't know how, you're not sure what your personal hourly rate is because maybe you're self-employed or you're just not sure how to calculate it. For example, you can use your salary. You can break it down and do a division to find out, okay, so if I get paid $200,000 a year, if I divide that by 52, which is 52 weeks, or the number of hours you work in a year, which is, let's do it by the month, you do 20 hours, right? And if you get, so let's say you get paid 50,000 for the month, then you divide the 50,000 by 20, for example, to identify how much you're paid on an hourly basis, right? So you need to figure out what your hourly rate is. Yes, personal investment. Could I repeat? Thank you, Q. Yes. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to calculate your hourly rate because you're going to need it. So just divide your monthly income by the number of hours you work. Well, I put 20 because that's the standard for workers. 20 hours per week, hold on. Is that per week or per month? I haven't done this in a while. I think it's weekly. 40 hour work week. Right, it's 40 per week, sorry. Yeah, 40 per week. 40 hours per week, or whatever it is in where you are. And if you already know what your hourly rate is, then that's great. Or if you have a desired hourly rate, then you can use that too. You know, you determine the number you use. For the example we're going to be using, which is Alicia's hourly rate is $75. So to calculate her PI, it is the sum of the number of hours spent with each of the people in her top 5. For example, for Alicia, Alicia, in her top 5, she has Tom. She spends 2 hours with Tom. And she has Brody, and she spends 5 hours with Brody. She has Paula, and she spends 1 hour with Paula. She has Jim. She spends no hour with Jim, 0 hours. And then she has Ruth, and she spends 10 hours with Ruth, right? So that's Tom, Brody, Paula, Jim, and Ruth. And that's Alicia's personal investment we're calculating when her hourly rate is $75. Are you still with me? PI is the sum, the sum of the number of hours spent with each person's in your top 5 closest persons to you, which we call the T5, right? So the sum of your T5 multiplied by your hourly rate. Are we all on the same page? So I gave you an example for Alicia. So Alicia's top 5 people are, her T5 are Tom, Brody, Paula, Jim, Ruth. The sum of the hours she spends with those people is 18. So that's the sum, right? So in Alicia's case, her PI is 18 times 75. That's in Alicia's case. You're going to do your own calculation for your own life. So write down first the 5 closest persons to you. Doesn't matter who those people are. So write them down first. Then write beside them, on average, how much time do you spend on a monthly basis, for example, with them. Then you're going to add up all the time you spent with all 5 people. So for example, you spend an hour with me. Well, you're spending 4 hours with me this month. Because there are 4 sessions that we're having, 1 per week. So that's 4 hours you'd have spent with me, with myself and Minister Carl. And with each other, actually. So if I'm on your list, you can put 4, for example. Yeah. So you calculate, you've listed all the persons who are in your top 5. You calculate the number of hours spent with them, and you add all that together. Please tell me the figure you get. Just type it for me in the messages. Your total sum of hours. The sum of the total number of hours spent with them, with all 5 people. For example, in Alicia's case, it's 18 hours spent with all 5. 25, fantastic. Thank you, Marsha, Mrs. J. I keep thinking it's Marsha J. My apologies. She lives in my head. Anybody else? Okay, so let's use yours as an example, Mrs. J. What's your hourly rate? Type that for me, please. In Alicia's case, her hourly rate is $75. And that's US dollars. Or whatever currency yours is in, doesn't matter. Anybody else have calculated their total, the T5 total sum? Is it that you haven't yet done it, or you would rather not share it and I can go on? Okay, so once you've calculated it, if you have, for example, Mrs. J's is 25, Alicia's is 18. When we multiply 18 by Alicia's hourly rate of $75, the answer is $1,350. Calculating it, okay. Okay, so because of time, I'm going to go ahead with Alicia's example. Okay. Yes, it's kind of tricky working on it. I understand. Okay, so I'm going to continue, and if you have questions, you can ask me, okay? Just for the purpose of sharing it, I'd like to continue. So Alicia's personal investment is $1,350, right? So therefore, her personal investment is that. Her PI is 1,350. Don't forget that number, right? Now, the second thing we need to find out, in order to discover what her net investment is, we have to calculate her net work value, right? Her net work value. So the net work value, before we spoke about who was on Alicia's top 5. Now, for network value, Alicia needs to know whose top 5 is she on, right? So it's one thing to have me on your top 5, for example. Are you on mine? We have to figure that out before we can even understand what the net investment is, right? So Alicia now needs to find out what her network value is. So it's the number of top 5 enlistment, the number of top 5 enlistment divided by the sum of hours spent with each. So it's the number of top 5 enlistment, otherwise T5 is divided by H, which is the sum of hours. H represents the sum of hours spent with her top 5, right? So H is the sum of hours spent with someone or a group. So Alicia's network value, when she calculated it, what she did was start, for example, you can start with the people that's on your top 5. You can start there by asking them, who's on your top 5? I wouldn't advise you to ask them, am I on your top 5? Just ask them. If you don't want to impact the research, ask them, who's the top 5 closest persons to you, right? And when they tell you, for those who say that you are one of them, that you need to have a conversation with them about how much time do we spend together, right? So in Alicia's case, Alicia, when she did her inquiry, she was enlisted on Tom's top 5, Brody's, and Paula. So she actually had 3 out of the 5, right? And with Tom, we know she spent 2 hours, with Brody 5 hours, and with Paula 1 hour. So her top 5, the number of top 5 enlistment for her T5 was 3 people, right? And that now divided by the sum of hours spent with them. So the sum of hours spent with them was 2 plus 5 plus 1, which is 8. So now her T5 divided by H would be 3 divided by 8, right? And when we divide 3 by 8, we get 0.375. Therefore, her network value is 0.375. I hope you're all with me still, right? 0.375. That's her network value. Now we need to use that information to figure out her net investment. Her net investment is network value multiplied by the sum of their hourly rate, right? So now you need to find out, this is going to tell you now the quality of the relationship. So we just looked at the quantity of the relationship. Let's now look at the quality of it, right? As in the financial quality of it. And it's based on how people rate themselves and the value they place on themselves, right? So net investment is network value times sum of their hourly rate. In Alicia's case, Tom's hourly rate is $50, Brody's hourly rate is $100, and Paula's hourly rate is $75. So her net investment is the network value, which we previously calculated at 0.375, multiplied by the sum of their hourly rate. And the sum of their hourly rate, when we add 50 plus 100 plus 75, we got $225. Now, when you multiply 0.375 by 225, what we got was $84.375. I hope you're still with me. So the net investment for Alicia, who has her top 5, she spends 18 hours with them. Her net investment is $84.375. Now that we have her personal investment and her net investment, let us now calculate her true brand value, or the sum of her brand, right? So the sum of the brand, or the true brand value, TBV, is personal investment plus net investment, right? Now remember, Alicia's network included Tom, Brody, Paula, Jim, Ruth, and her hourly rate was $75. Now, when we calculate her TBV, her personal investment of $1,350 plus her net investment of $84.375 left her with a true brand value of $1,434.375. Are we all on the same track? Did you get that? So you have to ask yourself, 18 hours of investment valued at $1,350 gave me a net investment of $84. What does that mean for me? What does that tell me about the people that's within my network? If your goal is to, for example, earn 2,000 US a month, how is that? How is your true brand value worth that based on where you've placed yourself? And you have to do the assessment to have an understanding of, okay, so this is where I'm investing. Because one of the things is, a lot of the times we sit and we may think, okay, you're my friend, or you're my partner, or you're one of the top 5 persons to me. Are you one of the top 5 persons to that person? So we go back to the bank and the job references. They ask you for your references, who can recommend you, and so on. And oftentimes we find ourselves skedaddling, trying to find someone to say something good about us. If the bank says to you, to get a loan for your business, I need a reference, and you sit down trying to figure out who, you are in a conundrum. You need to check the health of your network. If for a job you need references and you're wondering who to go to, or you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to ask this person, and it's almost like you're going to a state of, okay, I'm gonna have to try and see who I can get, then you're in a conundrum. You have to assess your network, because those are things that should be easily accessible to you. That the moment you hear it, like, oh, of course, absolutely, I know exactly who I'm going to. It should be easy. If it's not, then your brand is suffocating. So you may want to examine that. Well, that's the end of class today. I ended exactly at 1 hour. I hope I haven't impacted anybody's time negatively. Do you have any questions for me? Need any clarification? Anything? This is your chance if you have anything to say. Really? Really, as in? Yes, it's been an hour. Yes. So, any questions? Any other questions? Yes, it's really an hour, and I'm conscious of the fact that there are people here who need to get ready for work and things like that. So, yeah. Any questions for me? Anybody want to call in to say anything, to share anything? How was today's lesson for you? Did you learn anything new? You're just ready to listen. Oh, you're very kind. Thank you. I'm a bit lost at the calculation, but I'll read it over. Okay, and I'm also going to post this on the site so you can listen to it at any time. Mathematics is always a challenge. That's okay. It was a challenge for me too. It was, yeah. Thank Minister Carl, because he is an engineer, so he was very influential in us getting that down. Of course, you're here, my darling, and you're getting there. You're not trying, you're getting there. And it's being at a space where you are, let me not call it lost, but you're unclear, is a good place to be. It means that you're moving from the known to the unknown, and the unknown is future. You're also lost. That's okay. You're not lost. You're just figuring it out. You're just getting there. But I hear you. I hear you. I hear you, absolutely. So that's okay. When I post this lesson, you can download it if you want, and you can listen to it later and really take the time on your own to go through it. Well, thank you. Yeah, take the time to go through it, because I expected this. This is not, I'm not surprised by where you are, because that's my job. My job is to give you that paradigm shift and to get you into a space where you're like, huh? So you can start asking the questions. So you can start saying, okay, let me figure something out here. It's okay. My job is to take you from known to middle to unknown, and you figure it through. And I'm here for you. You are most welcome. And thank you too for being here. Yes. It's very important to know the value. When you spend an hour with someone, you need to know what that value is. And they need to know that too. You know, they need to understand that your company means something. It matters. If you disappear from so for example, let's say you have a close friend and and they're crying, and that hug that you hug them, that sitting down and being with them, that listening to them, it's at a cost. And we're in a world where there are multiple currencies, but the one that we tend to focus on is the financial currency. But the currency of relationship is more powerful than any. Thank you, and have a great day too. It depends on you. We have oh God, what is it called? We have a thing when it's published. You'll see how you can calculate, because sometimes your family is not in your top five, but your family is in your top 20, right? Sometimes your family is not in your top five, but they're in your top 10. And sometimes your family is in your top five. But as an entrepreneur, who do you want in your top five? That's what you need to figure out. It is said that if you're trying to become a millionaire and there are no millionaires in your top three circle, then how exactly do you intend to touch it? How exactly do you intend to become one? If you're not in the space, if you're not hearing millionaires talk and how they talk and watch how they live, and connecting with that on a regular basis, how exactly do you think you're going to get there? You know, and a lot of us sometimes are millionaires and not know. I remember the first time I realized that I had already achieved a million, but I was asking to become a millionaire, but I was earning 2 millions a year, more than 2 million a year. So I was already there, except that I wasn't calculating it. So I was wasting my money every month. So family, you have to determine, who do I want in my top five as I embark on building this brand, right? As I embark on building this brand. Now, if your mom and dad falls into your top 20, nothing is wrong with that. It doesn't mean they suddenly become unimportant. But if they're the ones you're spending the most time with, then they would be, your top five would include the people you spend the most time with. But what it should include are the people who has the greatest positive influence on your brand outcome, on the success of your brand, right? So, and this includes the books you read all the time. So it doesn't have to be a physical person that's always there with you. It could be someone that you follow closely, that you invest time in because they feed into you, right? It's the movies you watch, it's the things you listen to. Where are you investing your time? It's your work. A lot of us are investing most of our time at work. But if you were to go to your boss and say, who's in your top five? Would you be there? Would you be there? So you may be investing in someone, but how much are they investing in you? Well, maybe your boss doesn't need to spend time with you or have you on their top list because they have you on their top five or top 20 or top 100 salary, right? So there is a hard currency exchange. How you treat that relationship then, therefore, is very important, right? So, and especially for persons who are in jobs that they quote unquote don't really like, or it's not their calling, how are you investing? Because is the money enough if you're unhappy, or if this is someone you don't want to have a relationship with? If your boss is not someone you want to have a relationship with, is that job worth it? If it's not someone you can count on for a good reference, is it worth it? I'm not saying it isn't. I'm saying ask yourself the questions, right? So you have to determine, who do I need to have in my top five in order to become who I want to become? If I want to become a teacher, how many teachers are in my top five? If I want to become a millionaire, how many millionaires are in my top five? If I want to become a salesperson, how many successful um, salespersons or sales professionals are within my top five? Who are the people speaking to me, into me, and who are the people whose ear I've got? Who is the person who advocates for me at tables I will never be able to sit at? See, those are questions you have to ask yourself, right? There are some rooms, some boardrooms you may never be able to walk into. But who inside those boardrooms have you at top of mind and advocate for you. This is something I learned back in about 3 years ago. I remember I had a chair. She was a chair of the board. And every time people would come from meetings and would be like, oh my God, Raquel, I think the chair really loves you. Like she talks about you all the time. It's like Raquel, 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 Raquel. Like we need to promote Raquel. We need to, it's like she couldn't stop saying my name. And at the time, I so did not get it. What if you have interest, but it's time to move on? What exactly do you mean? Please explain. When you say have an interest, but it's time to move on, what do you mean? Are you speaking with regards to relationships or something that is a motivator for you or of interest to you? And who determines that you should move on from it? That's your decision. If there's something, because motivators in your job. Okay, so what if you have an interest in the job, but it's time to move on? Okay, so what I would say is before you make any transitions as it relates to work, you first need to understand what's your life plan. Who am I? What am I? What's my mission? What are my strategic objectives for my life? And where do I want to go? Right? What's the vision? Before you make any changes, you need to make those assessments. Because sometimes you'll find that you divorce yourself from something. But if you if you really had an understanding of where you wanted to go, you could have seen where you were very differently. And you could see how to leverage that very differently. Yes. So my recommendation, not knowing your story or what that issue is, would be to really assess where you are, where you want to go before making any decisions of transition at all. So, because sometimes you may need to convert something, not necessarily detach from it. Sometimes you can change the dynamics of a relationship as opposed to leaving the relationship, right? But what interests me about what you said is, what if you have interest, which means that you're invested, you have an interest there, and your motivators and your interests are closely related. So you have to be conscious of that. So you may feel like leaving, but the unconscious can keep you there. So if an interest is there, you need to figure out why. Find out why is there, why am I interested in this? Why? Before even determining that you should move on. So then, how will motivation impact your life? I have been. Please help me connect. Okay, so in your job. Okay, so Q says, so how will motivation impact your life? Your motivators have consequences in that your motivation, your motivators is really these subconscious things impacting your decisions and your choices and your outcomes, right? So sometimes we're doing things and we're showing up ways we don't even realize. We don't even realize. So it's important, especially it's important for you to complete that form that I give you. It's going to help you understand what are the things that are most important to me. What are the things that are most important to me? So before you move on, before you detach, before you make big decisions about your life, it is important for you to figure out what's motivating this, what's really motivating this, not just the top of mind reason, but the core reasons. Why do I not like this anymore? Especially if you're interested. Because if you're interested means that unconsciously there's some attachment there. I have been there where I love what I do and the pay don't make, and I stay there for no real reason. Well, you know what, my darling, you stayed there for a reason. You're just not quite sure what exactly that reason was. So motivation is your true self. Okay, so your motivators are the early emotional experiences that you've had that impact your how you show up, right? So it's not so much the true self. All of you is your true self. Your motivators, however, are the early emotional, the things, the aspects of the unconscious you, the unconscious mind that's within you, that is influencing your choices, but you may not realize it. And for persons who meditate or persons who connect with self and understand it, then you'll know how to connect with it, which is why I was saying your purpose is laced in pain. Because you see, when you were created for something. And to ensure you do not detract or derail that, it was laced in pain not because he wanted to hurt you, but because he wanted to keep you on track. So the most important thing in your life that you could ever do is learn you. And there are three things that I always say, and if you read my blog, you'll hear it over and over, that you need to invest in: therapy, coaching, financial education, if you want to achieve success here down here on earth. Therapy, coaching, financial education, critical, because you need to learn those things. You need to know. A lot of people spend time on everything else, and I call it cosmetics. The way I look, the house I have, the work I do, all of those things, because the external is so much easier to deal with. But how much time do you spend on self? For my top five, God is number one and I am number two. Did you even come on your top five? You know, how much time do you spend learning you? We go to school, we pay, it's a huge investment. We don't even call it an investment. We say we're going to university to get a degree so we can get a job. No, you go to school to invest in yourself just as you would for any entrepreneurial pursuits. So that's why, for example, people like Steve Harvey can come out and say, I've never gone to college, but here I am very successful, of course, because college is not what makes the person successful. It's the investment in self. And sadly, for a lot of people who go to college, universities, they don't figure self out until much later, which is why the rich dad, poor dad exists. Because when you exist in poverty, your your um your capacity, you're forced to reckon with where you are, with your physical state, with your economic state. And so that can be humbling, as well as it can be mind bending, as well as, if used correctly, can really um, give you the kind of breakdowns you need for the kind of breakthroughs that can take you through the roof. So that is something to think about. So no one aspect of you is your true self. All of you is your true self. So I'm not on my top five, not even my top 20. Wow. See? No, that is a challenge. That's an issue. That's a problem, right? Because you should be your number one, number two. God is my number two because of the relationship I have with him. He's my lover, he's my friend, he's my everybody, you know, and I spend time with him. So, and I hope I don't offend anyone by saying that. You don't have to believe what I believe. I'm just sharing my own experience with you. If he's not a part of yours, then whatever is most important to you should be you, right? You should at the very least be at your number two or your number one, right? So if you're not in your top 20, you have to ask yourself why. And not just why, but how is this impacting my outcome? Because this is it, right? Your motivators, and we would have gone through, and I know this too, because when we did the purpose, and I asked you, what do you want to do? What's your purpose, your life purpose, and all of that. You know how I knew that you all had gone through challenges, and where you are is based on the amount of persons who wanted to help the less fortunate. Almost all of us here wanted to help the less fortunate. In essence, what you're saying is, I want to help myself, the little girl in me, the little boy in me. You really are saying, the trauma that I went through, I want to help to heal that. Except we're not saying it to ourselves. what we say to ourselves is the feelings come and we feel inadequate and we start projecting and we start defending and we start explaining and we start disagreeing and we say to the little girl or little boy inside us, go sit in that corner. You paint them in a corner and there's no one to paint them out of it. And then you think you're showing up doing great. No, you're not. Because contrary to what you think, when you look at the results you're getting, the results you're getting is like a mirror of who you are. Your life is reflective of exactly who you've been showing up as, not who you think you are, but how you're showing up. So those are things that you really have to pay attention to. How am I showing up? I told you about my experience when I lost my business and everything. I didn't lose it, you know, I gave it away. I was lost. You know, I used to have people say to me, oh, everything you have to touch turns gold. And it would just make me mad. Because guess what? I could only see based on the extent of my own understanding. And I was taking things just based on my own. Remember, we went through the awareness wheel? That is something you may need to practice for a while. You have to shift your complete paradigm. You have to change how you see the world. You have to change how you respond to your world. So somebody walks up and they say something, you get upset. Why? Why did that upset you? Because the truth is, if I say blue right now, you're going to go to the color your past tells you that it is. But that's not necessarily what I'm saying. Blue for you, for me, may be purple for you. Right? So it's about how am I impacting my world? How am I creating my world? Because you teach people every day how to treat you by the way you interact with them, the words you say. If I say to you now, if I grant you all the words, all the things you said last week, the week before, would you be happy? The things you say, the things that come from you, only speak to you. It's only about you. What you say can't impact me unless I own it and repeat it to myself. Who is speaking into your life? Who is influencing your decisions? How are you showing up? Those are things that you have to pay attention to. Again, Rehoboam got the whole thing. Solomon was his father. He was the wealthiest man, I think, in the Bible, right? And he inherited that. But he was so ill prepared that he lost most of it, 90% of it, right? So as you build your network, you first have to understand who you are. You have to learn who you are, right? Before you can even start to think, who do I want to be connected to? Because someone is your family doesn't make them in your top 5, depending on what your outcome you want your outcome to be, you know? And for some of us, we are so afraid of relationships. No, I am one of those. Yes, very afraid of relationships, you know, changing our mindset, absolutely. Re-engineering the mindset, right? Because we have to understand what's driving us. And sadly, for a lot of people, poverty is, right? And when poverty is what is driving you, you're planning on pockets. There can be no great outcomes from that, because if the poverty is what is constantly top of mind, then you're living in the past. I always say, and this is just my personal opinion, slavery was a distraction to the greater impact of what was happening to the Black community, right? We were divided. Now, when we look at the power of relationships, you know that if you want to, it's like in the military, if you want to conquer the military, disconnect their communication. That's it. That's it. Just unplug communication. Boom, done. Right? So when we are busy talking about poverty and stuff, and when even now we're talking about racism, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist. That's not what I'm here debating. But what is top of mind? Because whatever is top of mind is what you're attracting. Whatever you talk about, wherever you spend your time, right? Whoever's speaking into your life, that's what you attract more of. So you have to check yourself. What am I constantly talking about? So yeah, you want to impact the less fortunate. How? By being sorry for them. Oh, you're so unfortunate. I'm so sorry you're poor. Or how? How? Because I believe the best way to motivate someone is to live it, to live the truth you're trying to sell them, right? So you have to gain an understanding into who I am and therefore how am I showing up. Um, One other thing I teach is consolidate, collaborate, monetize. Now, if you learn you, connect with the right people, then you shouldn't have to worry about the financial goals and or gains. It will come. We attract who we are in our state of being. We attract who we are in our state of being, right? That's something you need to check. When you speak, when someone asks you something, how many times do you go back to the past? The past is gone. As a matter of fact, what we're doing right now is past. Every time I speak, it's in the past. So we have to have more futuristic possibilities conversations if we want to move forward. Are there any other questions for me? It is my hope that as you go through this process, that you will discover you, that you will embrace you, that you'll get to a place where you can practice that awareness wheel. When you have sensory data, say you see something, hear something, feel something, process it. And when you start thinking through it, not just try not to just associate judgments and conclusions and meanings, but instead of giving an answer to what you feel or hear or taste, ask a question. Wow, what is this? You know? Thanks for the extra. You're most welcome. You are welcome, Kim. You stretched your mind. I'm just here for the experience. So thank you for having me be a part of you expanding your mind. You all are so powerful, and I'm so proud of you. You wake up for the 3 mornings now at this early time. It's a commitment. It says so much about you. So much about you. Thank you, Too Frost. Thank you all for being here. You are phenomenal beings. Go light the world. Thank you for spending time with me, with us. So, this is where I say, have a phenomenal day. Don't forget how amazing you are because you are. Learn you.